Hello, everybody. I'm Kipp Snow, Director of the Transportation Distribution and Logistics Institute at the Community College of Baltimore County.
Hey everyone, Mike Singer, Community Manager, Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Welcome to the Shipwatchers Podcast, episode 33. Just two guys talking ship.
That's right. That's right. How's your weekend?
Pretty good. Went to the Ravens game, so that was awesome.
That was a nice win. That was a very solid win, I thought.
That was nice until there was that one series where we just threw the ball and we had to punt, and like half the section heard me scream, "Just run the ball, John!" About 6 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I took my nephew. He went to his first game, the last game, and then this game was his second game, and it was his first playoff game, and it was Steelers' playoff game, and so he was just loving it. I mean, he's 20,
Excellent.
Goes to Salisbury,
okay.
but he loved it. He had a great time.
I had to take a trip down south, down to Charleston. Had to help the folks for a little bit with some projects as they're starting to get up there in the age, and so we made it back. So that was
okay.
Everything's good. Everything's good. Just moving forward, and
Good.
we'll nice little trip to get down there. It was cool to fly into Charleston International Airport, look out the window, and see there was a Wallenius Wilhelmsen ship at the Columbus Street Terminal.
Mm-hmm.
Right across where the USS Yorktown is at. It was pretty cool to see all of that from up there.
Yeah.
The overshot of the Leatherman terminal down there, but that was all pretty neat. But
Nice. And I did do some traveling this weekend. I got hired to move a pinball machine from like Southern Virginia to Manhattan in my pickup truck.
did it make it there?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes, it did. And I asked the guy, make sure you send me pictures when you get it all set up. So He hasn't sent me anything yet, but
so Mike's pinball delivery service.
yeah. Yeah. It was a 2-day trip. I mean, just down to Southern Virginia and back was 12 and a half, 13 hours in one day.
Bit of a hustle.
Right. And then came back here and then did Manhattan on the next day.
Whew.
And was home by 5.
Oh, wow. I did that trip once with the family and ended up in Times Square by mistake.
I ended up in a bus terminal.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you win. You beat me on that one.
That's not a contest I wanted to win. But in my defense, the bus terminal was right there when you come out of the Lincoln Tunnel. It wasn't. I'm sure Times Square is not near there. So
No.
If I would have wound up in Times Square, like I was meeting the guy at a hotel, and it was like 5 blocks outside the Lincoln Tunnel. I mean, but just, you're in a strange place, and you're trying to find the right way to go. And I followed the bus into the dingy bus terminal and had to figure, like, oh my God, what? I'm in a car. How do I get out of here? Anyway.
Oh. All right, let's go ahead and get into some shipping updates. We had some snow days this week, so we got some numbers to report around that.
Yep. So as we always talk about, we're following the truck transactions that's published by the port. And what we do is we take the amount of truck transactions per day and then add that up, divide it by how many days, and come up with an average daily truck transactions for the week. Am I explaining this correctly?
Yes.
Does this make sense? Okay. So 4 weeks ago, daily average was 3,390. 3 weeks ago, which was only 3 days because of 2 days of a Christmas holiday for the terminal,
Right.
Was 3,512 per day. 2 weeks ago was 3,360 per day, and that was only 4 days because there was New Year's Day holiday. And then this past week we had a snow day.
Right.
But a good average 3,648 per day with like 3 in the 3,800 range.
I mean that alone is a testament to but both the terminal operators and the labor unions who are
Right.
in there on the terminals trying to clear the snow and continue to do business as usual with,
Right. And we had
inclement
those
weather.
photos last week in our podcast.
Right.
And again, I think it's important to kind of bring this up that, you know, okay, we're all dealing with the snow, and some of us like it, and some of us hate it, and some of us hate having to go out and shovel it. And now think about, how do you move thousands of containers through a giant shipping terminal, and how do you make that work? Because it
Right.
snows over there too. They get 5 or 6 inches of snow also.
Correct.
And I think sometimes we lose sight of what goes into, okay, I'm just shoveling my driveway with a shovel, and my buddy came down with a snowblower. What does it take to clean a whole darn terminal and keep that moving?
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So, and I wanted to add that, we've had so much going on the last year, and I think what you and I are trying to do by talking about these truck transactions every week is try to get a picture, try to see what the norm is, what the differences are, how things fluctuate. Are things growing? What what do the numbers look like month to month?
Mm-hmm.
And first the Key Bridge went down, and then we finally got that going back, and it took a while for all the container traffic to come back, and so that got regulated from a standpoint of what's happening every week that we can count on. And then there was a little strike, and then there was a holiday, and then there was the threat of another strike, and so and we'll cover that a little bit further down
Correct.
in the podcast. But I think we're finally at a point where we can count on regular shipping for months, and that we'll be able to look through these numbers and these trends and not have to worry about, a blip, right? And okay, well, was it higher before and after that because they were trying to move product through because of a holiday or a strike or this or that happening? And so now I think finally we're going to be, in the straightaway, and be able to see something that we can consider comparative, that we won't have these blips.
Sure. Agreed. All right. So along with that, and we've talked a little bit about some various dredging projects in the port. And you have a diagram on one of the channels. Is that correct?
Yeah. So through one of my friends in the camera chat, he told me about the fact that the dredging of the Fort McHenry channel, which is basically the final channel that runs straight through the center of the Key Bridge all the way to Fort McHenry.
Okay.
And that they had done a pretty good job, and it looks like they might be finished. So this is pretty cool. Let me see if I have the ability. So here's what I want to show you.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, but there's this neat little legend down here in the corner.
Yeah. So what we're looking at is a navigational channel map, but it's also is it I don't know what the proper term of the channel scan is, but it shows the channel scan along with what is where the channel is supposed to be. And in this particular image, you've got a picture of the Key Bridge kind of outlined. Is that what I see there?
Yeah, that's the Key Bridge before it came down, and then here are the high tension wires
for the
the
BGE crossing.
Yep, yep. And so green is good, red is shoaling, or
what shoaling?
Shallow.
Shallow. Okay.
Right. So not 50-foot mean low water. So you can see they've done a pretty good job. And so they're doing the Curtis Creek channel,
Hmm.
which is the 50-foot channel that goes into Curtis Creek for the coal ships, and then around the corner and to the Coast Guard yard,
Right.
which I don't think that's been done for years. Um, but when I hear they're going to do a channel, I assume that they're going to do the entire channel. Well, I think what they do is they scan and then they do the high spots, right? They're not going to take the whole channel down to 52 feet. They're going to do a scan, figure out where the problem spots are, and just take it down to make sure that the whole channel is 50.
Gotcha.
So this is an example of um, a scan after their work has been done in this one section here by the Key Bridge. And as we scroll down, you can see they've done it in pages here.
Mm.
So you can kind of see, it's kind of hard to see unless I zoom in here, but so this is the actual entrance to the Curtis Bay Channel here,
Gotcha.
right? Okay. And let's keep going. And you can see there's a little bit of a high spot here,
Hmm.
and you can see some high spots
Right
along
along
the
the edge of the.
northern edge of the channel. So I'm sure that they'll have to come back and do those. Um,
I am just amazed at how, and I know that there are some blips there, and so
mm-hmm.
this is pre dredging. This is the
No, this is
scan.
post.
This is post. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed at how straight the lines are for the channel. Now I know that there are some blips here and there and things, but
Mm-hmm.
I really am impressed with how straight that scan is.
Yeah. That is, and I guess in these days of GPS, right? And we talked about, because we showed this dredge, right? I mean, this thing is monstrous. This isn't the kind of dredge that we normally use here. This
Hmm.
different company won the contract, and this thing has these giant spuds, which is, people don't know what those are. So even if you're a local pier contractor and you're just putting in a pier or a
Hmm.
bulkhead for somebody's house who lives on the river, they still have these giant, they're called spuds. So it's, you could say like a telephone pole, only it's steel.
Sure.
Um, and they just pick it up and they drop it, and it falls into the mud and locks the barge into place
Mm.
while they do their work.
Okay.
Now, the really cool thing about the spuds on this barge is that they angle and they can basically walk
Walk it.
the
Oh,
barge, right? Because otherwise you need tug assistance. Okay, you basically have a tug crew tied up to you probably 24/7. I
sure.
would guess. I would guess. And then, when it's time, then they move you whatever, 50 feet, 100 feet, whatever the number is. So this thing can actually move itself,
Huh. Cool.
which, you know, I'd imagine there are places where people see this stuff all the time, but it was my first exposure to a piece of equipment like this. Pretty cool, I think.
Gotcha.
Um, so this is up here at the top of this scan is one of the entrances to get to Seagirt Marine Terminal, right? Because so let's see if we can.
Scroll back up just a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just happened to see you got in this particular imagery. You've got a ship anchored in the parking lot right there.
Yeah, and the anchorage, yeah, and I think it's just they're just using GPS mapping or Google Satellite or something, and this
Hmm.
is overlaid. Yeah, so let me see if we can show this. And I know I've shown this map, a similar map before. This is the first entrance. This goes to Dundalk Marine Terminal.
Oh
This
yes.
is the second one that can go to Dundalk Marine Terminal or Seagirt.
Hmm.
This is probably where 70, 80% of the container traffic goes through this entrance. And then sometime I call this the Seagirt Loop. It
Mm-hmm.
has an official name. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. And this is the thing that I'm always talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because just dredging this loop. So coming in this doorway here, and I think it's 47, or
Okay.
maybe it is 50, maybe to like this midpoint. And then the rest of this on the way out is like 40. And I think they want to take that down to 45. And as we've talked about with the legislative representative Jennifer
Mm-hmm.
Guthrie, who's at the port meetings all the time, and it's quite the process. You have to have a design, you have to have it approved by the Army Corps of Engineers, and then it has to be approved by the federal government, and then the federal government has to have the money, and it's quite the laborious process. But anyway, what I was trying to do was zoom in on just to show this map of these different extensions of the channel and
Sure.
how the
Sure.
ships get to different places. So here is one of the side channels to Seagirt Marine Terminal. And this is like the end of the Fort McHenry Channel here.
Okay.
Yeah, all the way down by the fort. So kind of neat to see. I don't think now this is on a public website, and I think anyone can view it, but I don't think the public gets to view these
Gotcha.
that much. And so there's kind of a check and a balances for, okay, we have this dredge contract. They're coming in. They're going to hit the high spots in the channel so that the whole entire channel is at 50 feet. And then you can see that they actually go back. And I don't know if this is Army Corps. I'm not sure who does the survey, but then they survey to make sure that they've done a good job.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought it was cool to be able to see that.
Port of Philly? I know that's not us, but
Yeah, I did have. Yeah. I did have a picture here I wanted to share with everyone. So this was a picture from Facebook, and I thought it was kind of funny the way they talked. They were like lashing through the snow, right?
sure.
And so, all right, like I talked about before, we might be shoveling our cars out, but what happens at the port?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a picture like this at our port, so I thought, oh, this is an interesting way to
Explain.
explain and see what is actually happening. So, you've got a container ship at your port, and it happens to snow 5 or 6 inches. Well, guess where else the snow goes? On the ship between the containers. And so these guys have to get out here and manage these containers and either unlash them or lash them or, with the twist lock and lock them in place. And so they're still doing all this work and, on top of a ship, and they're walking in the same snow that you and I had to shovel. But it looks like nobody's shoveling on top of the ship between the containers. And so
Correct.
just a good illustration of what it takes to keep the port running. So last week we talked about, and we showed some pictures of what it takes to keep the terminal clear, and how we have these giant plows, and they're plowing right next to the ship so that we can get things on and off the ship. Well, nobody's plowing the ship.
Right.
So I thought this was a good illustration of something else that we don't normally see, that what it takes to keep commerce moving in a time like this.
I agree. No, that is a great image. Also, we've talked a little bit here recently about Jonathan Daniels' goals for increasing throughput through the terminals with container operations. And you had mentioned that the goal is 4,500. Is it 4,600 truck transactions?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we? What is the plan to get to that? And I think you've got some information on some enhancements of some transatlantic services. Yeah. So Costco shipping.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Costco shipping is planning to enhance their transatlantic service.
Mm-hmm.
And this is starting in February of 2025. The upgrade will introduce 4 direct transatlantic services, and those are Northwest Europe to North Atlantic, and which in the North Atlantic it's New York, Norfolk, and Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Northwest Europe to the South Atlantic,
Mm-hmm.
Northwest Europe to the Gulf of the United States and Mexico, and then
Mm-hmm.
Northwest Europe to Central and West America.
Yeah.
And so
So
so this expansion will offer a total of 66 direct port to port services.
yeah. So and I thought this was, directly related to what Jonathan was saying as you started us out with, where we're going to be picking up like another 1,000 truck transactions on average per day.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this pop up, and I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
this must be one of the new services. And so I thought it'd be cool to show this little map of how, because we really don't think, right? Sometimes people, they'll question and, oh, is that ship coming in full? Is it not leaving empty? And I sometimes I have to say, well, just imagine it's the UPS or the Amazon truck coming to your house. They're not dropping all the packages in the truck at your house. There's a route.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of cool to be able to look at a map, I think, and see this transatlantic global route that we're going to be a new part of here at the Port of Baltimore.
Something else to also to further understand.
Mm-hmm.
Some shipping lines they will have direct port to port services where all they're going is just between 2 ports. Some of them
Okay.
have routes that they take, kind of like a milk route or a hub and spoke model. So there's a lot of different models that each one of the steamship lines will
Oh.
implement. And in this particular one, they've got some route services. So not you could if you've got a container in Baltimore that you're trying to export, and by chance it needs to go up to New York and it's not time sensitive, you really could go and utilize that service if you wanted to. I know primarily this is a Europe to US line, but they will pick up some containers for shorter distances like that within these route models that they've put in place.
Hmm. So are you talking about U.S. city to U.S. city though?
Sometimes, yes. Now,
Can they do that? I thought
I
that
don't
was a
know. I don't
Jones
know where
Act.
the Jones Act is going to fall with those
Right.
types of transactions, but
Right.
there are going to be certain steamship lines that may have certain agreements that allow for that to take place.
Right. And I know that Maersk has some American flagships.
Correct.
So that would be enabled for at least those ships, I would think.
Correct.
Um, and so I do have somewhat of an understanding to the Jones Act, but it's almost like, there's some gray areas in there.
Yes. Yes.
And to be honest with you, I don't have a finite understanding of it myself. Sometimes I'm not sure.
I would also look at what type of what types of legislation and rule changes may be coming over the next couple of weeks with the new administration related
Hmm.
to the Jones Act or these types of transactions. There may be some changes coming to that we need to kind of watch.
Has anyone talked about perspective changes? Oh, you're just
This is just more of a general observation or
that
suggestion of
sometimes stuff changes with new administration. You're
correct.
not getting wind of any specific because there have been um, little things that have come out that
Yes.
people expect certain changes. This really isn't one of them.
No.
Oh, okay. I
Not
got you.
not that I know of. I don't have any. special nugget of
I got you.
information on
Okay. Okay, so we have some local Port of Baltimore news to go through. Kip, do you
it.
want to walk us through that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
You made a post in the Shipwatchers Facebook group this past
Mm-hmm.
week about some job openings at Domino's Sugar, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I get it. You know, this is shipping podcast, but because Domino's Sugar has such a strong footprint here and is very, obviously very recognizable, there are a lot of logistics and port logistics related jobs, or what's sometimes classified as ashore jobs, that help
Mm-hmm.
move the maritime commerce. I'm grouping the movement of sugar as part of the maritime industry, but Domino
Oh, of
Sugar,
course.
yeah. So, but Domino Sugar is actually on a hiring spree right now here locally.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to their website, and it's you can Google search for Domino Sugar, but it's ASR Group who's the owning entity of Domino Sugar. If you go to their website,
Mm-hmm.
navigate through careers, they've got about 24, 25 specific positions that they are training for, anywhere from um, logistical planning, to utility workers, production attendants who are actually processing the sugar at various stages,
Mm-hmm.
um, operations managers, packaging and warehouse operators and managers, packaging supervisors. These are all jobs that are extremely important to help that product flow through their facility. From
Mm-hmm.
the ship to the end user products that we all know, the yellow jugs of sugar and the little packets and granulated sugar and what have you. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're interested in getting involved within the industry and want to get into something that's very sweet,
Ah, boom.
maybe take a look at ASR Group's website and look at those opportunities for you.
Right, and quite varied, right? I mean, it seems like,
There,
if you're
there
out
was
of high school or whatever, if you're just looking for something new to learn, kind of entry level, it seems like
Mhm.
there's some things like that, along with some other type stuff like engineering and some
Absolutely.
other opportunities. Quite the wide array of types of jobs that are available there. And we know that they employ about 550 people there.
There's a significant footprint.
So you can imagine that there's always a need with
Mhm.
550 people. There's got to be folks coming and going at some point.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
if you are interested in any type of any of those types of positions, or
Mm-hmm.
entry level labor related positions in and
Mm-hmm.
around the port,
Mm-hmm.
or if you want to get into a management track, entry level management track with like Ports America Chesapeake or Wallenius Wilhelmsen, I have some
Mm-hmm.
free money at the community college. So
Mm-hmm.
we are a partner with the state of Maryland. And this program is part of the EDA Good Jobs Challenge program that the federal government is offering. As part of the offshore wind industry, they are expanding that footprint of transportation, logistics, supply chain oriented trainings for this particular funding. So I've got some funding at the community college to help people to get some basic understanding of the port logistics and maritime industry. Um, and I've got funding that I need to get rid of to help pay for this for these trainings. So if you are interested
Mm-hmm.
in getting any of those jobs at Domino Sugar or anything else around the Port of Baltimore, you may want to consider this opportunity that I have at Community College of Baltimore County. The
Mm-hmm.
two programs that we're offering at an entry level. The first one is a certified logistics associate certification, which
Mm-hmm.
includes forklift training and
Mm-hmm.
OSHA 10. So that's going to help you to get into any type of all boots on the ground material handling, labor related positions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if that's not for you and you want to look at more of a logistics management track, I have an 18 credit academic certificate that teaches you everything that you need to know about all the modes of transportation: rail, highway, there's some air, and the maritime, and they all interconnect. But these two programs have been vetted by local industry. They have provided what they want to have taught,
Mm.
and so they are hiring directly out of these programs. If you are interested in getting free training, there's a
Wow.
couple of information sessions next week. You can either attend the in-person session or do the online session. We're going to give you all of the information as to what the funding provides and how to enroll in these two programs, so
Mm-hmm.
you can get the training that you need to go get those jobs. If you need
Wow, that's
to
cool.
yeah, to register for one of those information sessions, there's an email address here,
Mm-hmm.
kwooten@ccbcmd.edu.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or you can email me. That's my work email address if you want some more questions, or if you have some more questions and want to learn more about this.
Great.
So I wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to know that this is for you, and if you want to take advantage of some training opportunities, I'm going to put
Especially
it.
free training. I mean,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So a lot of times if you don't have the industry related knowledge, you try to go get a job. Sometimes you're
It's the
not
old
able
catch
to.
22. You can't break into the industry unless you have experience or.
And some people may not have the ability to go pay for the training. This fixes that opportunity. So
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
so also this morning, as we were trying to prep and get ready for
Mm-hmm.
this recording today, the Sparrows Point Container Terminal, which is going to be coming online down there at Coke Point at Sparrows Point. The
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Maryland Department of the Environment released a 792-page joint Sparrows Point Container Terminal Project draft environmental impact statement.
Hmm.
I need to take a breath after that one. For public review and comment. So they are moving forward with their
Mm.
progression to get this terminal built and bring it online, but they want to make sure that they're following all the rules and guidelines. So
Mm-hmm.
this is an opportunity for the public to review what the plan is,
Mm-hmm.
and make comments based on the environmental impact. Um, and so they both of these groups jointly are inviting the local communities to come out and provide their comments and feedback on the project at a
Mm-hmm.
public hearing date, February the 25th,
Mm.
in person. Um, Hearing is going to be out at Solars Point Multipurpose Center.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are also going to be two virtual sessions where you can log
Mm-hmm.
in and take a look. So if you want to get some more information, I know that the Sparrows Point Container Terminal Facebook page has this posting and announcement. Trade Point Atlantic's Facebook page also has the information.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want, you can also get some more information at this website. It's www.nab.usace.army.mil/SPCT.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so that, I know
And
that's a little long string there, but
yes.
we can also try to put that link up into our Facebook posting. All right, so those are some local port news nuggets that came up this
Mm-hmm.
week. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there, there has been a little bit of conversations and a little bit more announcements and forward progress on the Key Bridge.
Right. So yeah, and I think it's important we use the right words. So not an announcement, not an official announcement, but I just happen to have some conversations with an engineering friend of mine this morning as we were prepping for the podcast, and I think how things work, what the process is, um, prompts an awful lot of questions from folks, even some folks who are used to engineering and awarding contracts on like a state and a federal level. And so I took some points from our conversation, and I thought it would be good to just kind of go over
Okay.
uh, what's happening. Um, so they're still on schedule. They're about, this is an engineering friend's opinion. Okay, so they he thinks they're about a year from phase one, the design. So about a year for phase one, a year for design, and then 3 years for construction.
Mm.
Um, and this, some of this is even confusing to me, but I think it's important that we talk about it, and that, okay, I might not have all the answers, but I want to help people understand. And phase two hasn't been awarded yet.
Mm.
So you won't be seeing any construction until a design is approved and permitted.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
they are currently doing the design, but the design isn't finished yet.
Okay.
And so the permitting part on the end of that is key. So, um, and then we remember, Kiewit, Kiewit,
Mm-hmm.
who is a giant construction company who have done a lot of huge projects, including bridges that
Mm-hmm.
of the type that we want here, that the MDTA has pretty much specified that they want in the request for proposal. The cable stay bridge has only been awarded phase one. Um, and so if Kiewit and MDTA can't agree to a guaranteed maximum price on that design, then it goes out to bid to another contractor, which is
Hmm.
interesting.
That
Like
is
I
interesting.
don't think I realized that. Um, so basically, if the state and Kiewit can't agree to a cost, then someone else gets a chance to construct it,
Hmm.
right? So they're in the design phase, but they're not necessarily locked into being the builder,
Interesting.
right?
I wonder if that's just a
Like a
product of
checks
what
and
this.
balances, like you've got each of
Yeah.
these separate parts. So I think what it is they've been, and there's four different contracts to this thing, and I got to be honest with you, it kind of glosses over and gets a little gray for me because I have trouble keeping it all straight. Um, but I think so they've been awarded to head this thing and the design, and so they're designing, and I imagine there are some subcontracts in there also, but um, like I said, if and so once they come up with a design and come up with a number, if the state agrees to the design and the number, then I think they would get awarded the next phase, which would be construction.
Gotcha.
If they, and I think what I'm doing is I'm summarizing what I think this says.
Okay.
Um, and then if they don't agree on that number, then it can go out for bid to another builder.
Gotcha. Okay. Hmm.
Right. It is, and I do find it fascinating everything that goes into this, all the little sub parts and areas that, it kind of makes it sound like all one big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you talk to somebody who knows a bit about what's going on, you realize that, wow, there's a whole lot more in the background. And this is way more segmented than I thought it was.
It's not just an easy slam dunk. Here's a contract, now go build a bridge. There's a lot of moving parts to it.
Right, right. So the design is underway at this time. So, we'll. Also another point that I didn't write down is that it was heard from Kiewit at some point that they want to mobilize once.
Hmm.
And so, do you remember this? They were talking about they were going to do kind of demo and building and design all at the same time.
Right.
And so, what I think that says is, hey, we don't want to come out and do demo and then, I guess, what if there's a bit of a break in the time frame and then have to mobilize again for building? We want to just do it all at once. They want to be able to do the demo and go right into building. So they want to make sure that they get all that as part of one process. So they don't want to do it in two separate processes. So that might lead to a demo starting maybe a little bit later than we may have thought.
Still ironing out that process, then.
Yes.
And again, it's not like this isn't an everyday occurrence. If this is not going to be the same process that we are going through with the Chesapeake Bay Bridge replacement, the 301 bridge. That's all. There is a process that they went through, and I'm sure that it's quite different than what we're trying to do today with the Key Bridge. Because of this, the situation surrounding its collapse versus just a normal replacement.
Right. I don't think that was a progressive design build.
No.
I don't think so. But we do know some folks that worked on that. And we've talked about some of those details about, how they built it, from like the piles standpoint and how you put like the cap on top of the pile and then you build the actual bridge structure on top of that.
Right.
Or how they remove the old bridge like below the water line and how they cut it with like a diamond saw, like at the mud line, and just fascinating details just from some local folks who might wind up working on the Key Bridge here also.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that was some information about what the current status is.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some postings this week about the Dali.
Yeah. So she is out doing sea trials.
How?
Huh?
How? Is she repaired out at dry dock and done?
Out of dry dock, painted, done. Haven't seen pictures.
Okay.
All kinds of peeps that hang out in the camera chat. I keep mentioning those folks, but they are some resilient people, and they find and give me all kinds of information that I don't have time to find myself. But no pictures, but you can follow it on various ship tracking websites where it's out at sea, and you can see it doing all kinds of little maneuvers out there. And they've been out doing sea trials since Sunday.
Wow. I thought it was interesting. I did see the posting in the Facebook group, and some of the maneuvers that it had been tracked. Sharp turns. It was almost like they were trying to make it break to see if they could find any problems with it. The routes that they were taking with the sea trials. So.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know what's normal for, a ship retrofit sea trial. Are they required by some IMO group to, take it through so many turns at so many knots? And
sure.
Or is it because it seems, I don't know. Other than those crazy pictures of aircraft carriers doing like some kind of crazy turn that you've seen on the internet. I have no idea what's really normal sea trials would be for a cargo ship versus, the comparative sea trial would be for after a significant retrofit? Are you
Hmm.
going um, and testing all the systems, or is it some kind of subset thereof? I don't really know. But she's doing to Shanghai now on January 17th, so that's only 3 days
Oh,
from now. So
wow. Okay.
I think some 500 miles from where she is now. So they better get those sea trials finished and approved and get going.
Move along for that date. Sure.
Right. So wow. So we have some really big news as far as the potential strike is concerned. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah. So everything coming out of January the 15th was supposed to be the magic day of a potential second ILA strike,
Right.
and everything's done
Tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah. So we could have had a very different podcast discussion today, but um,
As a
there
matter of
were.
fact, I think that you and I pretty much thought we would.
That's how the script was written up.
We had some stuff written in there because there was some really cool information about what may have been going on behind the scenes, but now quite irrelevant because
Right. So the two groups have met. The USMX and the ILA, they have met. They have negotiated an agreement that both sides are happy with. Um, the there was some press mentions of a not, and they said secret meeting, but they'd
hmm,
started to meet prior to the beginning of this past week to really start to sit and discuss and try to come to some type of a resolution.
mm-hmm,
Now, prior to this, we saw the ILA president Daggett to meet with President-elect Trump
mm-hmm,
to discuss here's what we're trying to accomplish. And there was I think that there was some alignment and push that helped the ILA to get what they needed. So there's a
mm-hmm,
couple of notes that was communicated in Freight Waves, which is a maritime publication that kind of summarizes this. And I will read a couple of the points that they mentioned.
okay, great.
That the terminal operators and the ocean carriers, this is what the agreement is, or what everybody is okay with. So the terminal
Okay.
operators and ocean carriers will get broader rights to introduce semi-automated rail-mounted gantry cranes and other technology they say that are needed to improve efficiency in container handling, while the union
Hmm.
receives guarantees that for new jobs linked specifically to each piece of equipment.
Hmm.
So
So
what?
they've kind of hammered out some details in there,
Yeah.
which
So
was, I mean, I didn't really think about that, right? Everything seemed to be, red well, I shouldn't use red or blue or black or white, but, everything seemed to be all or nothing.
nothing. Correct.
And the fact that they got into the noise, if you will, for lack of a better term, and
Hmm.
actually hammered out some specific details,
Hmm.
parameters, boxes that things have to fit in. Wow, that's great news. I
Yeah. So this
sometimes
is
I don't think about the other obvious stuff unless it's kind of guy thinking, right? If it's not like the Mars Venus thing, I guess it's kind
right.
of
Right.
right. If it's not 72 bold font on a billboard, sometimes we don't get it.
Sure. Sure.
So maybe I'm part of that crew.
Well, I mean,
Um,
it was, we did hear the rhetoric going into it that was under no circumstances are we going to accept any
yeah,
automation whatsoever. And
for sure.
if you look from the ILA perspective, they're trying to protect those jobs.
Oh, of course.
And so by, by, but with both groups listening to each other and
Wait, what?
hearing exactly, uh, by with both groups listening to each other and saying we need the technology in order to improve, with that guarantee that we are going to put more labor towards that. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
when in the classroom when we're talking about technology and automation, we do have an academic class in this.
Mm-hmm.
I explained to the students that, look, technology is not all bad, and yet if employers or if companies would implement it properly, they should be hiring multifold. It'd be, if you replace somebody with a technology, you need to hire more people to run the technology, maintain it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
your throughput, your throughput, your revenue should be increasing because of this. You should be
Right.
having more transactions, which immediately requires more labor, just automatically because of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I understand that there are some people who may have been replaced by technology in the past, and those
Yeah.
companies probably didn't implement that technology as effectively as they should.
Mm.
But these models should be providing more labor opportunities and not less.
Mm.
So I'm glad that they were able to come to an agreement that does move the technology forward and guarantees the people who need to, not want, but need to be there to operate and maintain the technologies.
Yeah.
So, in a separate statement earlier in the also in the week,
Mm-hmm.
the ILA said that President-elect Trump's support was key to securing the contract, and the union also revealed that for the first time that when Daggett and his son, who's also a union official, met
Mm-hmm.
with Trump in Mar-a-Lago back in December, that the president-elect spoke by phone with the USMX officials to express his support for the ILA.
Mm.
So they had kind of a plan in place to be able to go try to help drum up this support and get to where this needed to be. So I think
Mm-hmm.
after that call, that it was kind of set. Okay, well we are going to have to come to some mutual understanding, and we understand that, and I think that's how we were able to get it done so quickly with that pressure.
Yeah, and I think that maybe having somebody that has quite a bit of business experience may have helped.
Sure. We
You know.
with contract negotiations and verbiage and things like that. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
next the next step. So everything's not 100% right this second.
Right. Great. I'm
Okay.
glad you're going to cover that because
Yeah. The
like
the
we've got to tie some things off or something, right?
Yeah. So the rank and file membership now have to vote on this, and I'm going to I'm going to assume that this thing is going to be passed and ratified.
Right.
I would I don't
Because the head of the union is going to say, "Hey, this is a really good thing."
you're still getting your pay raise, your
Yes.
62%. We've got guarantees for jobs, so that that fixes that problem. And so we need to go ahead and sign this thing and move it forward. So I expect that we're going to the next kind of next and final notification that we get is going to be the agreement's been ratified. We're going to be good for 6 years. Let's move forward.
Awesome. Now, do we have any kind of time frame on that? Do we? Because remember, like when the first strike happened, and they had that partial or agreement, but it kind of had the same thing, right? Where it would need to be ratified or voted on by the membership. And then, did we ever hear that happened? Like,
I
I don't
haven't.
remember hearing about that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I am following some of the ILA pages and some of
Mm-hmm.
their publications and press releases and things. There are some presentations that I believe that are coming up within
Mm-hmm.
the local union operations to be able to explain in detail what the agreement says. So they want to make sure that everybody fully understands this before they vote on it.
Yes.
So they've got to go through that process to make sure that their membership is fully, aware of what they're about to vote on, and then they have to
Mm-hmm.
go through that formal process. I have to look back and see if there's any time date stamps or due dates or anything
Yeah.
like
Or
that.
is it one of the things where, okay, it's Um, it's part of the process, but it's not attention getting enough for the news, and it just kind of gets glossed over, and we never
Yeah,
hear of
because
it.
the big news is that the two major entities agree.
Yes, it's. I mean, it. I think sometimes when you avert a problem, people might be thinking, oh well, what's the big deal? People are going back to
Right.
work. I mean, I think it's a huge deal because what could have happened, and because of all the language, and I don't want to use the word rhetoric, but all the language that was used early on seemed um, awfully, unconciliatory, or
Sure.
like
Sure.
they're all or nothing. And so the fact that they were able to do this in two different steps, which I think was smart.
Hmm.
Let's carve out this section, accomplish that, move on, set another deadline, carve out this section, um, and the fact that they nailed down some of these details. What else do we have? We got some upcoming events. You want to
Yeah,
cover that for us?
our calendar of events is starting to grow. So today's the 14th. Tonight, in downtown Annapolis, there is the Baltimore Port Alliance 28th annual legislative reception.
Mm-hmm.
This is at the Annapolis Graduate Hotel. This is an opportunity for the Baltimore Port Alliance to help educate the legislators. They've got a new session of people coming in. You've got some newly elected
Hmm.
representatives, some seasoned elective representatives, and so they're going through their normal day operations. And in the evening, they will have a reception like this where they invite the legislature to come in and learn about the Port of Baltimore, learn who the key players are, learn the economic importance, and and help them to know what the Port of Baltimore does. So that um,
Interesting.
it's a good time for them to go and help communicate that message. That's happening tonight. That happens on about a yearly basis, and each the legislation I'm sorry, the legislators do have
Mm-hmm.
these types of events to help them to learn about various aspects of Maryland's commerce and business operations and things. So
That's a
that's
good point. I didn't think about, newer folks or transition, and then, getting everybody to introduce to each other and kind of
right.
talk about and learn. I didn't think about those opportunities. That's a really interesting
Yeah, so
point.
this is I've attended it in years past, and it is a great opportunity to just have some casual conversations, and a lot they do walk away with. I didn't know that. I'm glad that you mentioned that. We can think about that as we're looking forward through the next period of their operations.
Great stuff.
Tomorrow night is the Women's Traffic and Transportation Club of Baltimore January dinner. Jonathan Daniels is speaking.
Which is sold out.
Did you get your ticket?
I did.
I drug my feet, and I didn't get my ticket. So I'm
People
the
have been shot for less.
yeah. Well, the research department's going to go in my place. So you and the research department will have to pick up the slack for me. I'm sorry about that.
All
Um,
right.
that'll be a good time to hear a state of the port address. That's down at Michael's Cafe in Middle River.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you don't have your ticket, you're too late.
Too bad, so sad.
Yep. Friday the 17th is the Baltimore Port Alliance General Meeting at the pilot's office. February the 6th, that's a Thursday, the BWI Business Partnership is having their signature breakfast series, and Jonathan Daniels is going to be there giving some updates on the Key Bridge collapse and the port's recovering.
Mm.
January the 28th, this is a new one. You want to join the Baltimore Museum of Industry for a virtual presentation on the history of the Key Bridge, including its construction in the 1970s. And
Mm.
attendees will hear the latest status of the bridge reconstruction and a little bit about the Baltimore Museum of Industry's efforts to preserve the legacy of the original structure. And this program will be hosted live on Zoom. So if you're interested in that, go either to their website, to their Facebook social media pages for the
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore Museum of Industry and register for that. And keep in mind that John W. Brown, their first cruise in the spring is in May 24th. We'll remind everybody closer as we get to that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Um, our Port of Baltimore history segment here. So
Yeah.
this was something that I came across, and I thought it was fairly relevant,
You're
even
getting
though
pretty good at digging up some nuggets for these.
it's I try. So on January 17th of 1937,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of striking seamen hiked down U.S. Route 1 from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. on
Wow.
what became known as the Midnight March of the Baltimore Brigade. Uh, the,
Wow.
the insurgents within the International Seamen's Union, the ISU, were on the ropes, and desperate action was needed to save their rank and file caucus. The strike began in early November with sympathy from the West Coast waterfront workers. It was led by a rank and file committee within the ISU that challenged the legitimacy of the ISU itself. However, by Christmas of 1936, ships were leaving Baltimore Harbor with full crews, and on January 14th, other waterfront unions had called off their strikes and ordered their members to return to work. But only one person could have rallied the Baltimore strikers after 2 months of privatization and the desertion from other waterfront unions. And that individual's name is Patrick P. Whalen, nicknamed Patty.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is quite an interesting transaction. In 1937, I can't imagine the ILA in today's environment walking down US 1 from Baltimore to DC to strike.
Right.
That's
And then you ever see like the old pictures of roads, and
mm-hmm.
you're like, oh my god, like they weren't even paved back then,
Right,
or
right.
so who knows what that road looked like. But I mean, I know now walking down Route 1, you take your life in your hands because there's no
Exactly.
sidewalks and the traffic is just nuts, right? But back then, how long would a walk to DC take?
That's
And in the
mm-hmm.
winter, wow,
January, exactly.
right?
Okay. So I thought this was quite interesting. I don't, the publication that I pulled this from. This is
Mm-hmm.
from the WashingtonAreaPark.com. And they were providing some information on national maritime unions.
Hmm.
But what was fascinating to me was
Mm-hmm.
the historical tie-in. In
Okay.
1937, there were unions, there were strikes. They were trying to address labor-related issues within the maritime industry at the Port
Hmm.
of Baltimore.
Sounds kind of
And
familiar.
it sounds familiar, and they've always been happening, and they will continue to happen because of the
We didn't start
nature.
the fire.
There you go. So you've got your
Musical tie-in.
there you go. So it's important to understand that, yeah, okay, yes, strikes are scary, negotiations may be difficult, but
Mm-hmm.
we've always gotten through this, and we figured this stuff out, and we will continue to do that. And while this particular
One hits home because it affects you at this time.
we can all work it out, and it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So I thought that was an interesting related history segment to what is actually happening into today's port.
Yeah, and a great encouraging closing statement there, Mr. Snow.
I try.
I like that. I like that. Is that all we have for today?
That's all I got for today.
Okay. So just to summarize, we are Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. We are a local organization that just tries to help promote everything to do with the Port of Baltimore. We have many social media accounts: YouTube, Instagram, X, Twix. Shout out Amy Lawrence. Reddit, Threads. Did I miss one? And almost all of those as Balto Ches, one word. So if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, please give us a like, subscribe, or hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts as they come available.
And if you want to listen to the audio version of this, it is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. Busy week here, even though it's midweek.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. We'll get through it. All right, let's count it off. 3,
Yep.
2, 1.
Happy ship watching. All right, everybody. Have a great week, and thanks for watching and listening.